Alright, so the window's done. And the next part, which I'm going to be helping out on this is actually my mom's van, is to try to get an electrical system going in there. We're going to keep it pretty basic. I'll also share a video about our own van conversion, where I was a lot more elaborate in terms of, you know, building my own kind of battery, just, you know, ordering the cells and getting the BMS system, etc. Here it's going to be pretty basic. It's going to be basically one of those all-in-one stations that can be charged via land power, obviously via the 12 volt of the car, and the solar power. And for solar power, however, we're going to try to have something quite strong. So behind me you see a 450 watt module, which we're going to try to put on the roof. Now, since this is like a common module, not like one of those flexible light ones, it's obviously rigid and the roof isn't straight, so we have to take that into consideration. The easiest way of putting it on there is to get some rails, which many people have. It's just, you know, some kind of mounting system to usually load stuff on, and then they put this, and then afterwards they kind of fix the module onto that. So this is definitely a possibility. In this case, A, we don't have those rails, and B, I feel it's a bit of a disadvantage due to the fact that then there's a big space for air to travel through below it and put more kind of strain onto the module, but also obviously it's going to be not very aerodynamic. So we're going to try to put it as close as possible on the roof, literally touching the front down, but it obviously has those ridges that we have to take into consideration, and the roof is slightly bent. And so the idea that I had was to take some kind of screws and bolts and basically bolt it up to the module. Then the screws go through the roof, and on top of the roof there's a bolt, and from the leaf. So basically one screw has 3 bolts, one of them to fix it to the module, one of them on the upper side of the roof and one on the lower side of the roof. And so the screw can at the same time be kind of what holds it onto the roof, but also the spacer between the roof and the module, so we don't bend it or something onto the roof. So that's my idea. Let's see how it works. Eventually we have to consider a bit of space to go through there, but should be doable. Right here I basically took a piece of zinc metal, and I'm gonna put it on the front side of this module, so it actually there's no wind that can go underneath. And I'll put some kind of stuff that glues a little bit onto it. Otherwise I think it will hold just fine. The way I'm going to do this, I'm going to use those screws that you have from cars that basically cut their own path in there, and just make a tiny hole and then put the screw in. And since it's aluminium, since it's aluminium, there's no problem at all. Screw goes right there. Obviously you have to make sure that the hole is small enough, so it's not too big. Already put all the screws in, so we actually good for that side. I got in the shop only those, which are basically, you know, there's no bolt on it, so I cut the right length, and I'm using that kind of stuff, which is basically gonna prevent the bolts from loosening. You have various strengths here. I took a really strong one because why, basically, you know, putting those screws in has a tricky thing, because if you want to take proper screws, you're not going to be able to put them through the holes here because you have the glass module here. So that actually makes sense to just buy one of those bars, cut it into the right length, and then you can put it, you know, put the bolt from the other side. Don't forget to put that stuff, or take some bolts that already have this kind of security that they don't loosen up. And yeah, and then once you stick it in there, you're gonna be good to go. I mean, one thing to note is there are various regulations in every country when it comes to what you're allowed to attach to your car in any way, and if you need to get a certain permission or you need to go to another check up afterwards. But all in all, usually there is a way you can get like a module on there. You just have to kind of be aware of the fact that there are different things that are allowed or regulations in countries. I personally like this way of putting it because it puts the module as close as possible to the roof, so it has less resistance, as already mentioned. But obviously in terms of, it's a lot more invasive because you're required to make holes into the roof. So obviously if you work with rails, this is much easier, and you have A, less work, and B, obviously not quite the same risk in terms of, you know, leaking it, that it leaks somewhere and you get water in your van, because you absolutely don't want to get that, especially if you put a lot of insulation from the inside and everything. So if possible, try to avoid getting caught in that kind of situation. All right, that comes a tricky part because I'm trying to get it up here and I'm unfortunately by myself. So that's not going to be fun, but nonetheless, I'll give it a try. And yeah, I figured I'll try to basically take it on my shoulders, and I can't put it down and slide it over because obviously there's screws on it, so it's going to terribly scratch the whole roof. So I'm going to try to basically lie down whilst holding it and put it in place. And it's quite heavy, so not looking forward to it, but let's do it anyways. Alright, sliding out of there like a ninja. Cool. Oh yeah. Jesus Christ. Scratchy matchy. So you see, it's still higher, but screws on the roof, and now I'm gonna nicely mark where basically they are, and then I'll have to move it again in order to pierce the holes through the roof. Let's do it. One thing to consider is sometimes you have to obviously check where the holes in the roof are going to be. If you're going to have one of those carrier beams going across the car at that place, you'll have to anticipate putting a longer screw, of course. Something I didn't consider, but corrected my mistake now. Alright, so here we have the hole where we're going to go with the cables through. Not particularly nice here, I must say, but it doesn't actually matter that much. Obviously, going to nicely clean it around it. There we go. And here we're basically going to stick this on that way. So the cables are going to come through here, and as you can see, I cannot put those with the entire size through there, so I'm going to have to take them off on one side. These usually can be opened. So yeah, they are usually, when you buy them, you get some tools to open them as well. And I open it just by hand, which works also. But all in all, some way or another, I should be able to get this out. Right, so don't forget to put those on. We go through. Obviously we're not going to tighten them yet because we don't exactly know how much we're going to need up here. But this can already go inside the car. There we go. And the black one, we do the exact opposite. Here we're going to need that one up there, so we're going to take the other one off. There we go, same procedure. And now we're going to put some of that stuff. Actually, I'm going to drill a little hole in there because I decided to screw it on. Just feel it's going to do a better job holding there. It's screwed. What? Yeah, this is a bit ridiculous, to be honest. It's just not enough coming out. I have to get my pump. This one is some kind of a shitty one. Oh man. I mean, look at that. Just squeezing it, things bent. I think my mom got it somewhere for free, I think. As we can see. What a piece of garbage. This is ridiculous. Wow, don't get that. This is crap. Alright, I'm back. Got a better one. Other one landed straight in the trash. This is unreasonable. Alright, here, much better. Alrighty. You obviously don't want to be economizing too much, or rather, let's say not at all, because I mean it has to be waterproof, right? Alright, now the messy part is, I mean honestly, could have put in the cables afterwards, you know. No real need for me to put it with this at the same time. Alright, one thing to pay attention to is obviously you got the panels on the roof. However, solar panel produces energy just as soon as any kind of even diffuse light hits it. So it's kind of actually danger. You're not working on an offline system, right? You're working on a live system. So I always recommend one of these, just some kind of a solar connector to disjunction the whole thing. And make sure that your cables that you're going to plug into your solar panel are already wired all the way down, and have one of those, right? So like this is on, like this is off. We got this switched off, and now we can actually connect them to the wires that come into the car. All right, so as you've seen, we're good to go. And here come the cables out of the roof. And let's plug them. So we had, let's go and see, I think we had we had minus on this side, yep. So I'm gonna need a little more minus. And obviously I didn't tighten those yet because you'll wanna know exactly how much wire I'm gonna need. Let's go here. Wire it up. All right, looks good. That's it, and we're live. energy is being produced, but we don't know how much yet. So but this means for now, let's make sure the solar panel is properly fixed, and then we can go inside and do the rest of the spiel, and basically, you know, the MPPT tracker, and then basically the connection to this battery system. The solar panel is fixed. Let me just show you. So the way I did it, I don't know if you can see it, it's basically that I put those screws, they got a bolt to both sides, and yeah, obviously some material that, yeah, it's kind of, it's not silicon, it's some kind of a UV resistant silicon kind of thing that goes in there to close that hole up. Coming to the van inside, right here we have still a bit of work to do, because we have the cables coming in, and to optimize that power production we're gonna get an MPPT. The MPPT is going to be basically put after this thing and has the purpose of basically always keeping, I mean, optimizing the power production from PV. I guess you know what it is MPPT stands for maximum power point tracking, and essentially it just makes sure that there's always the right current in the PV module. And then after that we have this battery here, and this is like a fully it's like kind of a full system that has both an inverter inside and kind of a charge control, etc. MPPT system, and sorry, not MPPT, BMS system, and it has this cable, and that's what it will charge with. So one side is the typical solar cinch things, the other side has one of those round plugs, and this is how it's going to be charged. So ultimately I'll try to put this one in reach so that so that basically we can use it. Let's see how it goes. There we go. So you see here, perfect. Can already plug this. Alright, so we got the MPPT tracker here. This one is pretty easy. You got an input for plus minus from the module, you got two plus minus for the battery, and plus minus to actually direct have some consumers on it. So if you want to have light or whatever that isn't used from the battery, you can go over here, or you can actually get all consumption done from here. This would be a pretty smart thing to do if you have a battery. Yeah, so still something to be done at some point. Also here I'm gonna use those MC4 plugs, because the battery we're using actually has an input with an MC4s, so I'm gonna use those. There we go. And now I can plug this in, which is the cable provided with the battery, to charge it. It also has two MC4s. Don't be misled by the fact that you have a minus on the one where you're gonna plug the plus in, right? This is normal in MC4s. It's always the direction from where the electricity from the generator. So here, the electricity coming from the module has this one coming as positive. Obviously, if you have a new one, you're gonna go with a negative plug on it, right? All right, there we go. Tack. We're good. It's holding. Let's close this up. Here we can connect the solar panels. Up. Alrighty. Okay. We should be good to go. I'm gonna sort this in a bit. For now, I obviously would like to know if this whole thing works properly, right? Otherwise I can straight change whatever I need to. All right, see that? It's on. 12 volts. Come in. Oh wow. Solar's producing 36 volts. Battery 0 ampere. So that's pretty good. All right, so that's it. Actually, at the end, it ended up not working. This whole battery station that has the inverter and everything internalized does not actually work with the MPPT, and this is because actually it has sort of an MPPT integrated itself. It's not an actual MPPT, but however, it doesn't work if you kind of put one in an intermediate MPPT in this kind of constellation. So in the long run, we'll obviously be putting in other battery cells in there. But for now, we're just going to kind of directly put the solar panels into the battery, and this works as well. Works quite well. And you know, you have a very small kind of setup. You have actually everything you need. Basically, whatever you need, you kind of really have to figure out in the first stage of how much electricity you really need before kind of designing your system. And I think in this case, the electrical needs were quite minimal, because it was just kind of to have some light and charge a laptop, etc. There's like no additional things such as a fridge or anything like this to be taken into consideration. So that's it. It's not actually that difficult. I think in particular when it comes to kind of, cutting open a van and putting windows, a lot of people are quite scared about it. I mean, take your time, make your measurements, and it's not actually that tricky. So this is definitely a recommendation. This is something that I believe most people could do at home. And when it comes to the electrical system, I mean, do get somebody to advise you, but all in all, there are a lot of kind of all-in-one plug-and-play systems that shouldn't be too tricky to install either, right? So if you have any questions, feel free to always hit me up and put it in the comments below. And otherwise, don't forget to share, like, and subscribe, and see you next time.